Hello, friends, neighbors, and fellow quarantine participants. Welcome back to the Daily Throat Punch. Today we're going to talk about step pivot. And this is one of those things that's, unless you already know it, it can be difficult to learn. I know for me, it took me forever to do this. Literally, I had to do this for 2 weeks. Using a spot on the floor. And it was David Stacy from Octagon MMA who kind of solidified the concept for me. You're talking years ago. And I was watching him do it, and I was like, man, he is really crisp and clean with this. So I was like, what are you doing, man? And he told me. And it was kind of like this. So when you're doing a step pivot, you imagine slices of a pie, okay? Your lead foot's gonna step first, and then your rear, well, most times your lead foot's gonna step first and your rear foot's gonna go follow behind it. But you need to set your hips back up to where you're in a stance facing the other person. So if these are my feet, this one's gonna go here first, and then I'm gonna pivot where my hips will be facing towards the opponent again. So I have my chest and my hips and everything facing towards the opponent. That's kind of the idea. Again, this is one of those things where application in theory, you can know it in theory, but you really have to practice it to get the application and the actual thing of it down. So we're gonna translate this over here again. Slow camera move so we don't send anybody into the craziness here. So if we take this, and that's my opponent, if I'm gonna step and pivot, I need to turn my hips. So I step, my hips are turned. Now I pivot, and I bring this one back underneath me. Now I have a stance here. So I'm squared up to him again, but I'm off that line, right? So we're talking about making angles, getting off line. So if I'm gonna step back in front of him, my rear foot goes here, step here, and then when I turn back, and now I'm back on line again. So that's kind of the essence or the basics of your step and pivot. Some people in MMA do this fantastic. I don't have any examples right off the top of my head. There was this one video of a jiu-jitsu guy, and guy kept trying to tackle him. He would just step and pivot all day long. I forget. Somebody made a meme out of it on Facebook, and he just stepped and pivot out of the way, and dude just went right by him. And it was like thug life, had the glasses on and everything. Anyway, practice that, put a mark on the ground, something that you can do this kind of pie step around, do it kind of 8 on one direction, and then go back the other way. But turn your hips with this, because otherwise you're just kind of just moving in a circle, squared up, and that's not what a step pivot is. You have to actually pivot, which means you got to move your hips and move your shoulders. You got to rotate. Anyway, that's it for now. Check in later, and remember, keep your social distance unless some fool needs a throat punch.